Good afternoon, everyone, and we're going to let everybody kind of file in here as we are going to be discussing the severe weather threat that is ongoing out across western portions of Illinois out into Missouri and Iowa, and we're also going to be talking about the severe weather threat as we go on in through the daytime hours tomorrow out across portions of the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. So if you're watching this, please share and we'll wait for people to join. But as we do, please feel free to share this link on social media, wherever it may be. And as we allow people to kind of file in here to tune in, we will give them a couple of minutes here. What you're looking at right now is the current radar as well as the current watches and warnings across the region as of exactly 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So, like I said, we're going to give everyone another minute or two, so bear with us here. When we'll kind of start diving into what's going on and then what's going to happen tomorrow. So the format's going to kind of be, we'll discuss what's currently going on, and we'll discuss what's expected to happen today on into this evening across the Midwest. And then after we're done with that, we will jump on into what we are expecting to see tomorrow. Some of the, potential and some of the fail modes that we could see, and kind of go into the possibilities of what we're expecting on Wednesday. So, all right, so we're going to go ahead and jump into things here. Of course, you can always go back and rewind and start over if you get in here late. But right now, you can see we have a tornado watch that is in place out here across western and northwestern Illinois, out across portions of Iowa and northeastern portions of Missouri. And that tornado watch is in effect until 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. If we zoom on in here, you can see where we have a severe thunderstorm warning down into Missouri. We've got additional thunderstorms now developing back out into western or southwestern portions of Missouri. In fact, I'm going to take the radar and the watch fill off. And one thing you can kind of see here is back out here into northwestern Missouri, back out across the warm front out into Iowa, you can start to see this cumulus field that is developing out into there. So we're going to continue to see an uptick in coverage here as we work on into the next several hours in and around that area of cumulus and likely agitated cumulus out into that area. And then you can see some of the, I'm going to switch on over to we'll go to the infrared, and you can see the higher cloud tops associated with those colder collars out into, or the colder cloud tops associated with the higher cloud tops, is what I should say, back out across Missouri there with that severe thunderstorm warning there. But like I said, to the next couple of hours, Creston, Des Moines, Ames, those areas are going to start to see an increasing severe weather chance as we work into the next few hours. And like I said, here is, let me take the imagery off here, the satellite imagery, and there's that tornado watch until 10 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Now, these areas out here that are shaded in blue, these blue circled areas, those are MDs for potential severe thunderstorm watches. There was already several supercells that moved across northern Illinois this morning into this afternoon that produced very large hail out across northern portions of Illinois, even out into Chicago. And we're going to continue to see these storms up here kind of move across portions of Michigan that could produce maybe some hail into southwestern portions of Michigan. If we go on over to the forecast data as we work into the next couple of hours, this is as we start to work on into 6 and 7 and 8 o'clock. This is by 7, 8 o'clock. You can see by 7 to 8 p.m., the HRRR data is suggesting there are going to be, several supercells back out across, potentially northwestern Iowa, back out across, northwestern Missouri, out across central Iowa, maybe even very far southern portions of west Minnesota, and again, southwestern Wisconsin, and maybe far western Illinois by, I guess 7 p.m., technically 7 p.m. Central Time there. And so as we work, like I said, into these next 2 to 3 hours, we're going to continue to see the activity back out to the west starting to increase. And as we continue to work on into 8, 9 o'clock Central, you can see some of these thunderstorms stretching back up into Wisconsin. Now, as they do, they're probably going to start to override the warm front. When they override that warm front, they would become elevated and become more of a hail threat. But as these move across western Illinois, Iowa, northwestern Missouri, potentially today or this afternoon into this evening, there is that severe weather threat. In fact, if we go on over, this is the Storm Prediction Center outlook for today. You can see a couple moderate risks, one out into eastern portions of Iowa, western portions of Illinois, far southwestern Wisconsin, and far northeastern Missouri. Then there's that secondary moderate down across southern portions of Missouri, northern and western portions of Arkansas, and eastern portions, far eastern or southeastern portions of Oklahoma down there, and you can see the severe weather threats for today. Here's the wind outlook. You can see wind outlook not as impressive as Friday, 30% risk of wind today. Hail-wise, the possibility of large damaging hail. We've already seen very large damaging hail back out into northern Illinois earlier on this morning into this afternoon, but you can still see 30% chance of large hail, and you can see the hatched area here where some of that could be significant. Tornado-wise, 15% tornado probabilities across both moderate risks for today. The possibility of some strong tornadoes exists here into the next several hours into tonight as those thunderstorms continue to develop out across those areas. So, make sure to stay weather aware if you're out there, because there is still that potential for those strong tornadoes to develop. And like I said, if I go back, you can see as we work on into, and I'm going to talk Central Time here, as we start to work on into like 5, 6, 7 p.m., you can see those supercells really getting going out there into the next several hours. Into the warm sector out ahead of the low and south of the warm front and near the warm front across Iowa and Illinois and back out even into southern portions of Minnesota for today. Now, as we work on into tonight, we'll continue to progress this on out and go towards midnight here. You can see maybe some strong damaging winds out into southern portions of Wisconsin. You can see the HRRR kind of showing a little echo there. And then you can see as we work late tonight, the thunderstorms developing down here to the south along the cold front. And as we continue on into tonight and we head on into tomorrow, you can see this is as we start to work on into like 6 a.m. Eastern. Thunderstorms back out across western portions of Illinois, maybe more scattered thunderstorms across northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and back into central Michigan. And then, of course, tomorrow, we're going to have an additional severe weather threat. So if we go back over and we'll take a look at the Storm Prediction Center for Wednesday here, and you can see that there's a large enhanced risk that it stretches all the way across a good chunk of the Ohio Valley, portions of Michigan, a large portion of Michigan, and then you can see that enhanced into Ohio, Indiana, eastern Illinois, stretching back down into Kentucky, Tennessee, southeastern portions of Missouri into the Boot Hill, and then back down into northeastern Arkansas. So a pretty widespread enhanced risk tomorrow as far as the severe weather is concerned. And if we take a look at the probability, here's the day 2 wind probabilities. You can see that 30% risk down here into southern portions of the Ohio Valley, stretching down into the Tennessee Valley. That is as that line is expected to congeal as we work later on into the afternoon and into the evening here, at least more confidence that it will start to congeal as we work into that time frame. And then kind of move off to the east and southeast. We take a look at the hail outlook for tomorrow. You can see places up into Michigan, eastern portions of Illinois, kind of almost the northern half of Indiana. You guys have a 30% chance of seeing hail. Again, some of that being, significant hail. So large hail possible tomorrow for those areas, generally in that 30% risk area. And then, of course, the tornado outlook for tomorrow, there we are. You can see that 10% tornado risk across those, generally the same areas that have that larger hail risk. And that's the main reason you're seeing the hail risk and the tornado risk almost mirror each other, is because that's where it looks like the best chance of sustained, supercells and sustained discrete supercells will remain. So you start to see better hail chances up into those areas, but you can see the 10% tornado risk there, as well as 10% SIGTOR values there. The possibility of, a strong tornado or two is definitely not out of the question tomorrow across those areas. There's a lot of questions regarding tomorrow. I know there's a lot of I don't say hype out there, but there's a lot of people kind of initially just talking about the worst case scenario for tomorrow. There's still kind of like a high ceiling, low floor kind of day, meaning like you have that potential for it to be a really widespread, impactful, severe weather event, but you also have potential that it ends up really not being all that significant, depending on how things kind of go as we work into tomorrow morning. So let's go on over and we'll discuss a few things here regarding tomorrow. So let's continue with the simulated radar with the HRRR here. So, and we'll discuss a couple different models. So this is as we go on into tomorrow morning. You can see as we go on into like 9 and 10 o'clock, we've got some thunderstorms. They're kind of weakening as they come across Illinois. We've got some rejuvenating thunderstorms down into portions of, the St. Louis metro area and then stretching back up into Michigan. And then as we continue on into, midday, you can see additional thunderstorms starting to develop out here, initially kind of discrete into like 1 to 2 p.m. and then continue into 3, 4, 5 o'clock. And as we work through the afternoon hours tomorrow, and this is by 5 p.m., you can see we've kind of got a few discrete cells out here across Ohio, maybe down into Kentucky ahead of the line. And then your main cold front is starting to come down across portions of like the more interior portions of Michigan, down across northwestern Indiana, eastern and southern portions of Illinois by 4 to 5 p.m. tomorrow. So you can see this broken line of thunderstorms developing along and ahead of that cold front. And as we continue on into like 6, 7, 8 o'clock, you can see this line continuing to kind of congeal together, potentially on into the evening hours tomorrow. And as we work on into like 6, 7, 8 o'clock, it's starting to push on into Ohio. The big question is going to be tomorrow, one, what kind of morning convection are we going to see? Because if we go on over to the NAM3 here, apparently it's got a load. You can see as we work into the morning, here's this line of thunderstorms back out here to the west per the NAM3 kilometer data. And as we start to work into the afternoon, these start to move in and they kind of break apart. And you're seeing kind of an initial area of thunderstorms here, but then you've got a secondary area of thunderstorms developing tomorrow afternoon right along the cold front that moves across. So there's the potential we could see precipitation come in during the morning, and it could kind of allow us to stabilize the environment a little bit. If you are in the Midwest and you watch severe weather forecasts, or you are interested in weather and have monitored severe weather forecasts at all into the last even just couple of years here and really paid attention, one thing you hear us talking about a lot, especially in the Midwest, is morning crapvection is essentially what we call it, but it's morning convection. It's morning rainfall, morning thunderstorms that are, light rainfall or sub-severe, and they come through and they kind of linger, and cloud cover lingers, and we don't get the instability that we need. And that becomes a problem. And even times when we're not anticipating that, it becomes a problem. So, I'm always a little bit leery, 24 hours beforehand to start jumping on this is going to be a major event, and kind of say, for sure, because there's always that unknown. And until we get into the morning hours tomorrow, I think there's still some questions that'll have to be answered. And the other question that's going to have to be answered is, are we going to see 1 round or 2 rounds of storms? Are we going to see kind of this initial line move through here tomorrow after late morning into the afternoon across eastern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio? And we have kind of a line of some thunderstorms and maybe some strong to severe thunderstorms there. And then a secondary line forms along this cold front and moves through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. Or will we end up seeing more of just this one main line coming through, and we essentially have 1 round of severe weather unless you get a few discrete storms? So there's another question that has to be answered. So there are still a lot of questions regarding how things are going to play out tomorrow across the forecast area. And the other thing you got to wonder is, okay, is this going to be an event where you have discrete cells, or is this going to be forced into a line of thunderstorms? Looking at some of the data, my personal opinion is, as these thunderstorms, especially if they weaken through the morning and start to redevelop into the afternoon, you're probably going to be initially developing with the discrete thunderstorms. And I would tend to kind of favor how the HRRR looks here tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening as we work on, or this is, I guess, by noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then into the evening where you start to see these kind of discrete thunderstorms initially here along and ahead of the cold front. I think initially you could very well see those, but as you work into into the late afternoon, evening, these are probably going to start to congeal more into a QLCS or a linear type system here as we work on through the late afternoon and evening. And let me show you why. So let's go on over and take a look at the HRRR. So this is one thing. Let's first look at the instability. So you can see tomorrow morning, the instability is really winding down here tomorrow morning. I mean, obviously it's overnight. We're not going to have the sun to heat things, but you can see the HRRR as we start to work on through the morning hours into lunchtime and then into the afternoon does build back that instability to the tune of, maybe areas of 1,000 to maybe even locally 2,000 joules per kilogram. It looks like a more widespread, probably like 900 to 1,200 joules per kilogram tomorrow of mixed layer CAPE. But you get, the most of the data is suggesting there's going to be instability tomorrow, especially by the time we start to work into the afternoon. And so it does look like there will be instability. Nonetheless, so let's go on over and I want to show you a couple things. So we're going to kind of compare things today from today to tomorrow, because what I want you to notice here is the fact that this is the crossover winds at 500, 850, and 10 meters. So essentially 500 millibars, 850 millibars in the surface. And the red is surface winds, the blue is 850, and the black is 500. Notice today, as you work, especially up along the warm front, you have these kind of south to southeasterly surface winds. You have a more southerly 850 wind, and you have a kind of a south-southwest or southwest 500 millibar winds. And what that does is it creates shear through the environment. Because these winds change with direction, it creates directional shear instead of just speed shear, which is speed shear is winds changing or increasing speed with height, which still rotates the environment. But today you can see how we kind of have this shear out here, the more directional shear. That's more supportive of a tornado threat, especially on, in a little bit more of a widespread coverage area. But as we work tonight, and especially as we work on into tomorrow afternoon, let's just go on through like 3 p.m. One thing to notice tomorrow afternoon across Indiana, Ohio, Michigan is the fact, look at where all the wind flags and the wind barbs are coming out of. It's generally all out of almost directly the southwest. And so tomorrow you start to give up the directional shear, that changing of the wind direction with height, and you go into almost a direct, pretty much speed shear situation where you're getting your shear from the winds changing speed or increasing speed with increasing height. And so, I'm not saying you can't get tornadoes out of this situation, because you most certainly can, but with experience, not all the time, but a large chunk of the time, when you start to see these winds all out of the same direction throughout the environment, you generally want, the environment generally wants to force these storms into a line at this point, especially along a cold front. And so my question tomorrow is, okay, how much supercell activity, especially discrete supercell activity, are we really going to see versus just seeing a line, a QLCS that comes through and brings through damaging winds, which if you're, with the tornado, talking about tornadoes, if it's a QLCS, it's really decreasing the tornado potential with that line of storms, as opposed to a discrete storm mode. So like I said, there's still questions that have to be answered tomorrow. But right now I would tend to favor obviously still kind of questioning, okay, are we going to have 1 or 2 rounds? But I would tend to favor, especially into the afternoon, probably kind of this HRRR solution where you start off with these discrete cells along the cold front as we work late morning into the afternoon here. And then as we work into the mid to late afternoon into the evening, they're probably going to tend to be forced into a line. Obviously, there's still some fine tuning that's going to have to be done there as far as timing and things, but that's kind of my general idea for tomorrow. With that being said, I mean, the damaging wind threat is still pretty significant tomorrow, given the strong winds aloft, because as these thunderstorms rise up through the atmosphere, they mix down that wind from the upper levels, and so they bring that down to the surface. And so you start to talk about these very strong winds that we're going to have aloft mixing down to the surface, bringing in damaging winds. Plus, it's a very strong cold front, so you're going to have very strong cold air invection, and you're going to have some strong winds in association with that, because we already have wind advisories in place for non-thunderstorm winds. So that's kind of what we're looking at here as we work on into today, tomorrow time frame. And of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on some of the social media stuff. Let's take a look here. So overall, we haven't seen too much change. You can see these thunderstorms out here towards Creston, Iowa, really starting to get going now this afternoon. Still seeing that severe thunderstorm warning down into portions of Missouri here. Don't see any kind of additional watches that have been posted as of now. So I'm sure there will be some more as we work on into the evening here across, potentially up across Wisconsin and northern Iowa, and then of course back down across the secondary moderate risk down to the south. Don't know if anybody has any kind of questions regarding tomorrow's forecast or not. If they do, you can ask them and I'll try to answer those for you. We'll kind of keep looking at some of the information here. You can see pretty good thunderstorm down here. I don't know. Let me see. I can pull up a single site radar. We can kind of take a look at this while I'm waiting to see if there's any kind of questions. We're probably not going to go too much more into the forecast unless people just have certain questions here. But we will take a look at that thunderstorm down here. You can see it actually has a little bit of a notch on it down there north of Mexico, Missouri. So pretty good thunderstorm going on down there. Pretty crazy thing here. I'm going to pan back out. Not really. I mean, it does have to do with the severe weather, but not really. Look at the warm front that's in place here. I mean, you're at 82 in Evansville, 80 in Indy, and then like 60 up near Fort Wayne, and it's 56 up into Detroit. This warm front is absolutely impressive here this afternoon, and that's where your thunderstorm activity is focused. Back out here into Iowa is right along that warm front this afternoon. I mean, that's where you're seeing all the activity developing is right along this warm front. The bad thing about those warm fronts, a lot of wind shear involved with those warm fronts, so you see more tornado activity. So I don't really see any kind of questions that are rolling in, so we'll probably leave it at this. Everybody, thanks for logging on. I just want to emphasize, I know there's people out there that are really really concerned with what's the forecast for tomorrow, the severe weather threat, understandably so after Friday. If you haven't already, I would definitely encourage you guys to have, a severe weather plan in place, know where you're going to go. If there are tornado warnings or anything like that, Mother Nature commands our respect, but keep in mind there's also ways to prepare, and you don't need to just be fearful of what's happening, because you can put a plan into place and to protect yourself and protect the people around you. So just kind of keep that in mind. So new severe thunderstorm warning, there you go, out into northwestern Missouri as those thunderstorms continue to develop out there, and will continue to do so into the next couple of hours. Everybody, thanks for logging on and spending some time with us this afternoon. I hope this might have answered any kind of questions you might have had. Have a good evening, everybody.